Live. It's time to go live. All right, and welcome to everyone here. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with tonight's Thursday night. Today is the 6th of April, 1923. No, I'm not that old. That was before my father was born. It's the 6th of April, 2023. And I'm Dave Casler, KE0OG, and welcome to our live stream for this evening. One of the big tasks that we need to do tonight is give away our power supply right here. And there's a second prize, which is this little meter. Now, for the next month, I've got, these are FRS radios, family radio service radios, and they actually meet the spec for family service radios. And they're about 2 watts or so. They work on frequencies above the ham radio of a UHF band, so in the upper 400 kilohertz. These are handy for camping, things like that. If you're trying to set something up and you need somebody to help you, you can put them both on one of these. And this will be our April giveaway. And who knows, if I come across something, we'll create a second prize. So, welcome to everybody. Now would be a good time to insert ads. Oh, let's not. Okay, let's see. I've been working today. I put up a video about my new soldering station, which I had to replace the old one because I was trying to use it, and the temperature, I saw the temperature rise up for the soldering gun, and then it dropped way down. So I tried resetting it and all that kind of stuff, and then there was this and nothing would work after that. So I have a new one here, and you can hear all about it in a video that I put up today. Normally I don't put up videos on Thursdays, but it seemed a handy day to put it up, so it is up. So William Myers, KE0OG, hi Dave and all loggies. Eddie, K6SDW, light rain coming to Ridgeway, Colorado, mañana. Yeah, we thought we were going to get blasted yesterday, but we didn't. We got, this morning when I woke up, there was a very light layer of snow on everything. It seems every morning when I get up, there's a very light layer of snow, and it was all gone by now. Now it's gone, and their sun is working on the things that are a little bit less, a little bit harder to melt. Out front, which doesn't get to see the sun much, we have about 2 or 3 feet right off the porch. And it's probably all solid ice by now. But fortunately, our walk is clean and everything. Have this, Aiden, my assistant, he's cool. He comes in, and if our walk needs scooping, he'll do that before he even comes into the house to do his work. So I've been having him work on identifying the differences between the 9th and the 10th editions, meaning the old edition and the new edition of the general class license manual, because we've got a little time here to get those up to date. It does not look like there are any major differences, but we'll wait until we complete our comparison, and I'll let you know. And just know that by July 1st, the videos up on the ARRL site for general class will be updated to the new handbook. William Myers, KE0OG, have you been flying recently, Dave? No. We're still waiting 2 parts, a hub for wheel And there's a company in Phoenix that makes one. I've threatened to just go drive there and sit in their front office until they find one that fits. And another little part is a little tiny sleeve with a couple arms sticking out. It's actually a lever that's used so that the rudder pedals can control the direction of the front wheel. And they're going to make that part just right in-house because it's so simple. So that's what I'm waiting on. I got a call from them today with a little bit of a status update. We hope to be flying soon. I really would like to fly soon. They're talking about pulling my airplane out of my hangar into the big hangar so that they can start doing everything else that has to be done while we wait for the rim. It's actually the rim and the goes down to the bearing where the axle goes through, so a ball bearing there. And judging from the damage done to the fork, I hit the ground pretty hard. I know exactly what happened, and it's a typical beginner mistake. And even though I've been warned against it, I found myself getting into it. I was having severe trouble with the headset. It's a Tango version of the headset, and it, I think, has been abandoned by its manufacturer. It's problematic. Anyway, for a variety of reasons, it wasn't working, and there's supposed to be a cord you can pull and hook it in when the Bluetooth fails. Well, that wasn't working. And so I was trying to land, and I had all kinds of people saying, "Are you landing? What are you doing?" And so I was working on that when I should have been working on my landing. So I landed at the proper speed. It was a controlled descent, but I had the engine RPM set too high. So once I got down on the ground, I wasn't slowing down because the engine RPM was too high. What I should have done was taken the headphones off, put them on the seat beside me, go around, come all the way around in full view of everybody, and then landed. And then I could have landed more carefully with the right RPM and, right speed and all that kind of. I was at the right speed, but if you don't have the engine at the right RPM, that doesn't really matter. So I went, I bounced and slammed into the ground. So my bad. I know it was my bad. But I'm not going to give up flying just because I screwed up one landing. Fortunately, got to walk away from it. And as quite a few people have said, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. So, Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave, and all Augies worldwide, N5, KVO from South Texas. Cold and rainy most of the day, and currently 49. It's 43 here. David Whittinger, greetings from Tampa Bay, from Dave K3JAJ. I used to live on Pearl Street in Tampa, just north of the air base, and when I was in the Air Force there. And golly, we paid $26,500 for that house. And I had no idea how I was going to make the $250 a month house payment on a lieutenant's salary. But we did, and when we left, we sold it for $32,500. And it turned out that Tampa had paid us to live there. And I thought, I think I'm onto something here. So anyway, yeah. So I think that house is still there. Dave Burnett, KQ4GVR here from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Good evening, sir. Thank you. Glenn Martin, hello from far west Missouri area, N0QFT. And Glenn, you know what today is the anniversary of. Samuel Stout, hi Dave from East Tennessee. Ralph Leland, hi Dave and everybody. K4TA in Fork Union, Virginia. I like the sound of that. It kind of rolls off the tongue. Fork Union, Virginia. And it's just got a nice feel to it. Let's see. Far West Missouri, East Fork Union. Okay. Samuel Stout, KD4SAM. MT Free. Hello, do you need my HF station grounded to earth if I have an indoor dipole antenna? I live in an apartment. If you have no access to the outdoors, you're going to have to do without. You can, unless you have a balcony and you can attach your antenna to that, you can get from MFJ a so-called artificial ground, which is actually a tuned counterpoise, which you'll have to retune for every frequency that you use. So I would try it with the indoor antenna, and if it starts giving you RF problems, then you can start playing with these indoor grounds and things like that. Apartments are a difficult situation. I was in that same situation myself when I was in the Air Force before we moved. John Nagel, hello all from W5EXJ. Life and Death. Dave, I bet someone would like your old soldering station as a challenge project giveaway. Well, sadly, it's already gone. The trashman came yesterday. I thought, you know, I really ought to open it up and repair it, but actually I like the new one better. One of the reasons is the heat tube, which is this right here, disconnects from the unit. The old one, the pump, which is this part right here, the air pump, was actually in the unit. And then right here are the quartz heaters. And they can make this air extraordinarily hot, 800 degrees hot. And then you've got a little nozzle you put on this, and you can work with surface mount components. You put the heat gun down on them, and then just use the tweezers to pick up the entire IC, because all the solder will have been melted at once. So that's pretty good. By the way, I'm going to turn this up just a wee bit, because I've noticed in doing videos using this setup right here that the modulation level is pretty low. Okay, John Nagel, hello all. Let's see. Yes, CS Fine. Hello from Maryland. W3CLF, hello. Eddie K6SDW, I bought it all powers R600 power station, and it puts out RFI on 40 meters. Any advice to eliminate it? That's very interesting, because I think I got that to review. And one of my reviews was to turn the thing on this table under load. In fact, I used the screw shooter as the load, and then listen on the headphones to the radio on 40 meters and see if it created any RFI, and it did not. Check your ground. There's no grounding lug per se on these little power packs. They don't have any place where you can conveniently ground them. I'm sorry to hear that. All I can suggest is further grounding of your station and get your antenna away from where you're operating all of the power station. So if you have your antenna coming in coax, it's shielded, and then it's connected to ground where you connect the lightning arrestor, and then you've basically got any RFI from that grounded, and your entire system is shielded because it's all unbalanced for power, and the power, the power is grounded. So Eddie, let me know what you find out, and I'll see if I can get that one out. I think it was an R600, and see if I get any RFI on 40 meters. Ted Bowman, hi all, from KK7, KHK, lots of Ks. Life and Death, show up in their front office with a bedroll and cook stove and tell them you'll wait patiently. Yes, I just about need to do that. This company makes rims for everything under the sun. Light aircraft, for go-karts, for ATVs, for basically anything that needs a sport-type rim. They make them. Now this rim is actually pretty wide, and it's a bolted rim, so there's two halves to it. And I think you bolt those before you put the tire on. And I think that the tire has a tube in it. So I'm not absolutely sure. I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers trying to change a tire in the field for a sling. He was in Namibia, and he had picked it up in South Africa. And he got the thing open and found out there was no tube in there. It was tubeless. The tubeless tires are not good collision tires, because if you get banged on it, it will break the bead and let all the air out, and then the tire's flat as you roll out. Better for the tube, you break the bead, but the tube is still in there, held essentially in place. So you can go better. And I think mine has a tube in it. So either way, yeah, I may just have to go down there and do that. Let's see. W3SMM radio. Hey, Dave. A wave from the nation's capital. Very good. Optical Man Jeff, KE0KRO. Hi, Dave and Augie's from KE0KRO in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it is 44 degrees and clear. And we have 43 and it's clear. We've had sunshine today. And I've been testing a new solar charge controller that I picked up on Amazon for 10 bucks. The thing's actually working. So I'll do a review on it. Although I think I'd go for a Bioenno or something like that. I've got the Bioenno. It was set up to charge lithium batteries, which means it had a constant output of 14.6 volts. And then the battery management system in the battery takes that 14.6 volts and does what it needs to with it. And then when it doesn't need it anymore, it cuts it off. And you can watch the current go down as it gets closer to cutoff. That's a very different charging regime from lead acid batteries. But the Bioenno also could be set up for lead acid. I've got large 12 volt AGM lead acid batteries that I've had for 15 years at least. And they just keep going and going and going and going and going. And I'm not going to pay to replace them until they falter, at which point I'll recycle them and go lithium. But we'll see. Okay, let's see. Where are we here? Aviate, navigate, and communicate. Aviate first and foremost, and that was my mistake. I was focused on communicating while trying to land. Yes, I agree. I was stupid to do that. I put myself in danger doing that. You aviate. Then, if you have time, you navigate. And then, if you have time, you communicate. But job number one is keeping that airplane in the air. So, anyway, there we go. Okay. Tell me if my audio's okay. I think it's okay. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Let's see. Having blown one landing, you can be damn sure you won't forget that for the rest of your life. That is absolutely true. I had one wonky landing as a student. Scared the flight instructor to death. I landed straight, wings level. We were going into a crosswind, so I had my right pedal depressed, which meant the front wheel was pointed off the field. And so we came down on the front wheel and it immediately took us off. And we were flying over the weeds next to the runway. And I knew well enough to, if you have an emergency, fly through it. Don't just give up. But if you have an emergency, fly through it. So I glanced over at my instructor and she had her hands folded in her lap. I think she is resigning herself to crashing. And I was just keeping it level, keeping it flying. Finally, she said, my aircraft. She pulled back on the throttle and headed us back over the runway. And what I learned from that was you've got to be prepared to switch immediately. I mean, I did one thing right, which was I kept flying. I didn't give up. I kept flying. I kept that thing straight and level above the weeds. Now, she told me later, you know, we should have crashed. I said, no, we shouldn't have crashed. We did the right things and we got out of it. So I learned from that a little bit more. You have to go beyond just keeping it level above the grass. You've got to actually get that engine going and get the thing back in the air. But so there we go. Okay. David, AC3HT. Hello, David and fellow Augies. Greetings from Moscow, Pennsylvania, near Scranton. Currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Well, good deal. It's 2 hours later there. It's after 9, so I'm guessing it's dark. And by this time, that's a little further north, so the sun gets up there a little earlier. I'm seeing 42 here now. Jonathan Anderson, hi from KI7, BSJ in Pocatello, Idaho. Borjuis. Okay. Hello, Dave. I have problems between Wi-Fi radio, micro tick interference to my ham radios in 20-meter radius. Your Wi-Fi equipment should not affect your ham radio equipment even the slightest. So I would suggest there may be in the power supply for it, put some ferrite beads around the output, because I think it's usually a little wall wart that you plug in to power those things. Put some ferrite, snap-on ferrite beads right there up next to the power supply, and then put them again just before they go into the wireless or the router or whatever you've got, modem, cable modem. The other thing you can do is if you do have wires coming out of it, you've got some objects in your house are wired to the internet, like my computer is. You can put some ferrite beads around the snap-on ferrite beads right around the cables before they go into the router and see if that helps. Now, one of the problems is Cat6 wiring for, a megabit per second uses twisted pairs like the old telephone stuff. There are 4 sets of twisted pairs. 4 sets of twisted pairs. There are 8 wires total. 2 are used. 2 of those pairs are used. 2 are not. They are can be used for power over Ethernet and stuff like that, but in normal use they're not used. But if you put the ferrite bead around it, it is possible, faintly possible, that you'll interfere with the signal on those twisted pairs because the signal does radiate a little bit away from the twisted pair. And if it's a problem, you'll have to do without. But I think just capturing the power supply for the Wi-Fi router will probably handle it. It should, because there's Wi-Fi is at 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. That's way above anything we normally do with ham radio, unless you're into microwaves or into mesh networks or something like that, because those do use frequencies that are Wi-Fi. It's very interesting. There's a little bit of an overlap between the ham bands and the 2.5 or 2.4 gigahertz ham band. Let me see if I can identify that overlap just by looking at this. Uh, 2.3 to 2310 and 2390 to 2450 are ham bands. And it is legal to get yourself a parabolic dish, feed it with one of those routers, and use those frequencies. They map to channels in there. Okay, let's see. So give that a try. Let's see. Bourgeois said 73 from Yankee Delta to Delta Alpha Yankee. Okay, we got to go check this. Let's go to, let's see, it was KE0OG, copy. We're going to go in here into QRZ.com. Oh, I muffed it. I'm having so much trouble with my hands. We'll enter the query here. And that is in Indonesia. Okay, very cool. And here we can see who we are talking to here and some of his QSL cards. Boy, those are amazing. Okay, very good. Very nice to have you on board, and thank you for coming in. Okay, Ted Bowman, Ted KK7KHK Boise, yes. W1JGM, John, good evening. Robert Lucan, W3RDL, greetings, Dave and Augies from the Space Coast. Any thoughts on a 3-element hamstick Yagi for small spaces? Take a look at diamond antennas or arrow antennas. Now, the one that I have, I've got a 4-element 2-meter beam, and it is from one of those two, and it works fine. You can get a 3-element. I'm assuming they would sell it. And then for UHF, I have a 10-element beam that's only this long. And it's so cool because everything pivots and it comes sort of in a long box, and then you just straighten everything up so it's all pointed the right way. It's the first of 2 antennas that I've seen that can be not only assembled but mounted without any hardware. Everything is a wing nut or something like that, and you can just do it without any tools. It's cool, very cool. And that includes the mount to the mast. The second antenna that fits that category is this Australian, it's a clothesline antenna. What do they call that? let's go to studio. I want to see if I can remember this. We'll go to studio. Okay, come on. Hey, Australia. Nothing. Anyway, it's a cobweb antenna, and it came down in a windstorm at about 48 miles an hour just a few days ago. It broke one of the arms, but it is eminently repairable. So I'm going to have to do that. But since it came down, I'm going to be putting a different antenna up there and doing some more tests. I built the ARRL antenna kit, but I haven't put it up yet. So that will go up in that spot, and we'll see how well that works. And then I'm going to practice extending that antenna to full 80 meters, see how well that works. And then I have a trick to set it up so that it will do 75 meters without affecting the other bands. So we're going to do that basically all in one video, coming up as soon as the ground is a little dry. Okay, let's see. Harry Rundle, Harry in AC3EK, Harry in Overley, Maryland. 63 degrees, windy and raining. Life and death, tire beads. Serious off-roaders use a bead locker on their tires. It uses many bolts and installs over the bead and wheel edge, so the bead is very hard to break. Should be easy to add. Interesting. Eddie says, my audio is Q5. I did turn it up a little bit, so it would be easier to hear. Harry Rundle, audio okay. I've got some Cyrillic letters here. Copy that and go to translate, google.com, put those in here. Hilarion, okay, it's a name. It's a name. Thank you. So Hilarion, you are good, sir, which is referring to the audio. Thank you. Chris K, if all other things are equal, would it be better to have an antenna in the attic with 30 feet of coax or an antenna on the roof with 100 feet of coax? Definitely the latter. Your coax on HF is not going to affect your signal that much, even if you're using RG8X. Okay, 100 feet is just not an issue on 80, 40, 20, 15 meters. Okay, so go ahead and put that antenna outside. The fact that the antenna is outside will uncompromise what would be an attic antenna and allow you to put it up above you. So I would think that would be a thing that you would want to do. So yes, definitely. W2AEW, good to see you. Chris K, by all means, antenna outside and longer coax. Okay, that's what I just said. So good that W2AEW, he is sort of the dean of the technical in terms of ham radio videos. He really goes into the tech a lot more than I do, and which is a lot because I go into tech a lot. But yes, N6GML, Greg from Mather, California. Oh, California. I grew up in California. Hello, 73s. Leo Gustafsson, a KK7CLY, visiting from Albany, Oregon, mid-40s around here. Chris G7VEO from the UK. Happy Easter to Radio Augies Worldwide. Thank you, Chris. Leo says having some difficulty with the MFJ 464 and my old Windows XP. I guess the first question is, why are you still on XP? I thought they had a free upgrade to Windows 10 at one time. Let's look up, I think we did this last time, MFJ 464. MFJ 464. MFJ 460. Oh, the Morse reader. Yeah, as I mentioned, well, that should be a standalone device. You've got to get audio to it, however. So you can take an audio output. I know on my computer, when I plug into one of the audio ports, it asks me what I'm plugging in. And one of the options is line out. So that so you can use that to feed into your little Morse code detector. Again, that device has been around for many years. It's using 90s era technology. And if the Morse code is machine sent, like the ARRL code, it will decode it. If you get somebody who's using an iambic keyer with a rig like the 7300, which will actually adjust the spacing so that it's correct, the machine will read that too. But I think to get a really good Morse code reader, we're going to need to figure out a way to get our artificial intelligence to tease apart the dots and dashes and the noise and the uniqueness in tuning of every individual. For example, I found, to my horror, recently when doing a video on CW, that my dits are only 1/6 as long as my DAWs, not 1/3 like they should be. Your wall clock is running about 11 minutes behind. I'm looking here at the GPS clock and at the computer clock and looking back at the clock on the wall, and it looks dead on to me. Now, the clock on the wall is, in fact, something I got from DX Engineering. It catches the WWV signal and sets itself as often as it gets it, probably usually at night. And it keeps itself very, very accurate. Another thing it does is it automatically changes itself for daylight savings time. It'll actually run that thing backwards. And this right here is my GPS clock. I've got a GPS receiver right there, and I'm reading out the time from that. And then, of course, the computer time is coming from NIST or wherever. So I think the clock is correct. I don't think there's an 11-minute delay. There is about a minute delay from when I say something to when it shows up. Seems the terminal program in XP can't communicate with the MFJ 464 despite verifying the baud bit, etc. Even try to reset. There is a terminal program in XP, if I remember correctly, XT term or something like that. Look on the internet. There are many terminal programs that will work with Windows XP. There's quite a few of them. Try a different one. The other thing you have to look at is a driver. Now, I don't know if the MFJ uses an RS-232 input or if it's USB. I suspect it's old enough it might be RS-232, in which case you need an RS-232 board or output in your computer. A lot of the older XP computers actually have them. They are still available. You can still get cards that will do the legacy interface. Microsoft thought nobody was using RS-232. Well, it turns out in hospitals and laboratories and so on, they use a lot of legacy equipment. You know, the fact that a computer is 5 years old makes it ancient. But the fact that a blood separator centrifuge is 5 years old means nothing. It's a perfectly good piece of equipment, and it'll last forever, and it probably wants to communicate with the computer via RS-232. So Microsoft had to start supporting that again in Windows 8. It was always there in XP. By the way, as far as XP is concerned, it is, in my humble opinion, and you know how humble my opinions are, it was the epitome of the user interface for Microsoft. The top, the best. It's been downhill ever since. Let's see. Okay, seems the terminal. Okay. W2AEW in the chat. We're in good company here tonight. GOFVT. Try Putty. Yes, Putty works. It's a free download. Yes. Mark Churchill, can you use a metal carport as a ground plane? You can, but, there's always a but, right? Often the metal roof of the carport, the different pieces of it are not well connected to each other. So you're going to have to put in screws or bolts or something to get them to all work together. But yes, you can use it as radials. However, note that you're charging up the carport, and if somebody happens to touch it or the poles coming down to the ground, you could be in for a shock. I would recommend putting up wire radials, insulated wire radials, stranded wire, which you can buy at any home store, and just put out some of those and tape them down to the top of the carport or something. Don't use duct tape because it goes bad in the UV. You can use that foil-backed duct tape if you want. That'll work too. Okay, let's see. W2AEW, thanks, Reggie, but I can only stick around for another 10 minutes. Then I need to run to do a club presentation. Well, very good. I need to get back into that habit. I've been approached by a number of clubs looking for presentations, and I need to get back into that. Endotooth, obviously a dentist. Hello from North Alabama, KG4HVQ. GO Golf 0 FVT, hi to W2AEW. Cobweb antenna, thank you. Rob Kessel. A few hours later, save your money, don't support the ARRL. I would disagree with you on that. I think that the ARRL is well worth the money. Of course, now I'm biased. I just today am proofing my June column for Ask Dave, which QST publishes. But, I mean, think of it this way. You go to the gas station and you fill up your car. It's going to cost you more than an annual membership to the ARRL. You can take your wife out to dinner and pay, well, more than that, unless you go to McDonald's or something. Go twice to McDonald's and you've paid for it. It's not expensive in the bigger scheme of things. Yeah, $49 seems like a lot, but you can hardly fill your car with gas for that. So just do it. The ARRL needs your support. and you get support from them, which includes QST, which I do my little part for. Okay, so I have told new techs that I consider it mandatory that they join the ARRL. Now, what usually happens is people don't join until they get to be general. And then they've lost all that ability that helped them get up to that. So the ARRL membership is heavily dominated by generals and extras, and not that many techs. And the reason for that, I think, has a lot to do with the fact that many techs get their license, get their $25 handheld, and they're never heard from again. So the other thing I would strongly suggest that you do is join a local club. Now, you may have to do a little club shopping to find one you really like, but joining a club, I think, is a really good idea. You know, at first you just want to make sure you're compatible with the people in it, and in most areas of the country, you're within driving distance of 2 or 3 different clubs. Find one that you really enjoy, keep going. Note that no one in the club is mandated by any law that they have to help you. But if you ask them in, you know, a reasonable manner, somebody there may have some ideas that they can put together for you. So, Warren Baker, oh, thanks for the kind words, Dave. You know, I really, you do your videos so well. Warren Baker, hi from Chattanooga, WA4BAK. Justin Vaquez, I got a couple questions. I live in a ground level brick apartment. Not able to have an antenna outside. Recommendations? Well, I'll ask this question. Do you have like a little back porch or something, you know, to put your grill on or something like that? If you do that, you can stick a mag loop antenna out there, or something like that, or go for stealth. I know somebody who has that problem, but about 30 feet away from the back is just trees. And if you live in the East Coast, you know what I mean by trees. Driving on the East Coast, you're driving down a slot between the trees. There are so many trees. It's almost like living in a rainforest. Whereas out here, there are trees in the mountains, but they kind of peter out when you get to the plains. But if you live where there's trees, you can put a vertical up out there and then use a little pizza slicer to slice the ground and push the coax in, and use a few lawn staples to keep it there. And in a very short period of time, no one will even know the cable is there. So at least that's something you can look at and see what you can do. You said it's a brick apartment. I'm currently a general. Is extra class worth it? My answer to that is yes. The European ham bands and the American General ham bands on 40 meters butt right up against each other, but are mutually exclusive. So if you want to talk more DX, yeah, the extra is worth it. Plus, you know, if you've been a general a couple years and you've been on the air and done a lot of things on the air, it feels good to go ahead and get that extra, and you feel like you've really earned it. Hello, Dave. Whoops, we got bumped ahead here. So far, nobody has thrown in any chat revenue. Let's see, doing a presentation to a club in California via Zoom in a few minutes. Well, good luck with your presentation, and we wish you the best. And Von Ziegel says my wall clock is right on. The clock looks fine, life and death. Your wall clock pretty much matches my cellular time, and that's GPS. Tom Bartman, Terra Term, and Putty both work for terminal programs. Both are free. HP has hyperterminal. Yes, hyperterminal. That's the one I couldn't remember. I used that all the time for packet. I have a it's packet KE0OG. Anyway, I have one. It's old, it's ancient. But there's still packet on the air on 2 meters. And there is still a packet network out there, digipeaters and stuff like that, because nobody ever took it down. So I just use a terminal program with the thing because it communicates via RS-232. Okay. Dwayne, KE0OG, hey gang, don't forget to like this live stream. It really boosts the YouTube algorithm. It does. Terrence, 2ECHO0, India Papa Kilo. Dave, I wish my logging software would use British summertime instead of UTC all of the time. On log 4OM, I would put a time, and it comes up, it's wrong, because we're now an hour forward. Yeah, I understand. The problem is that you Brits kind of defined time. You know, the French beat you to the meter. The meter was 1/10,000,000th of the distance between the equator and the North Pole, the geographic North Pole, on a line through Paris. That's since been refined a great deal. But the British kind of defined time. I mean, the British Empire had major need to navigate the high seas because the UK was major sea power. And the longitude was the hard thing to figure out. Enter the Greenwich Observatory and, oh, the prize for the guy who invented the clock that keeps accurate time even on a heaving ship. A very accurate time, I might add. And so UTC, or Zulu, as it was mostly called at the time, Zulu, and it was Greenwich Mean Time. Now, Greenwich Mean Time is astronomical time, and it has been defined now for centuries. They average the length of the day over some period, enough to account for the precession of the Earth's rotation. The Earth wobbles on its axis. So Greenwich Mean Time is astronomical time. It's adjusted to keep it in line with the Earth. And one of the problems of the Earth is that it is slowing down. Now, atomic time was defined by the U.S. NIST, and the French got in on the act because they're the keeper for the international standards. TAI is French atomic time. And universal time is basically TAI, slightly adjusted. There is no clock in the world that is the master clock. There is an algorithm that says, okay, you say you have UTC, but you're a half a nanosecond fast. Just keep that in mind. And you over there, you've got UTC, you're a quarter of a picosecond off. And that's how they kind of keep it going together. But Zulu time, Greenwich Mean Time, for a ham radio operator, the difference between the two is very slight. UTC, when they put that out, what they do is they wait until the difference between GMT and atomic time is within less than a second, and then they'll add a leap second to pull it back to GMT. There's UT1 or 2, UT1, I think, that's basically an astronomical time. But you Brits are in charge of the time over there. You guys invented the Zulu and the Greenwich Mean Time and all that. And so we have to change here too, you know, because we use UTC is always used in radio time and has been. And I suspect it will be forever. They're talking about needing to come up with time zones for the moon. I'm going, UTC? How about that? But I don't know. Nobody asked me. Okay. Anyway, Terrence, I have sympathy for you. When I first became a ham, I logged everything in Pacific Daylight Time. Unfortunately, all the other hams were using Zulu time, so I had to make the adjustment. In fact, there's a big entry in my log where I make the note that everything after that is in UTC. The problem back then was getting a clock to read UTC. They do make 24-hour clocks, but I kept having to remember the conversion. And so now right here, shoot, I've got a GPS receiver and it's displaying not only UTC, which is 014113 right now, and local time, 7:41 p.m. And then it's also got my GPS position, which hopefully is not moving very much. Okay, so anyway, I digress on the time. Let's see. Bruce Cash, KI6LQE, Dave. Van Dypel question for 17, 15, and 12. Do you think the frequencies are too close to get a good tune, or it will work well? It will work well. Okay? I mean, the frequencies are far enough apart. That won't be a very big antenna. Okay, pay that 50 dues to ARRL. Oh, we got lost here. Yeah, you know, my professional association, as I was in the working world, was the IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. That was my professional organization. And the dues I paid to them were, and this is back then, well over $100, $150, something like that, just to make sure that I was professionally represented by the International Organization for Double E's. And so what we pay to the League, which is the only organization in the United States that can lay any claim to lobbying on behalf of amateurs, is the ARRL. Now, Canada, I know, has two organizations. The UK, of course, it's the Radio Club of RSGB, Radio Society of Great Britain, which I joined for a while, but I got the magazine like 2 months late, you know, and anyway, I let that lapse. Every country has at least one organization representing ham radio. And I think we owe it to other hams to be part of that and support it. And remember that if we're a member of the League officials, like the section manager and so on, try to get out to club meetings. And I've run into a number, like at Quartz Fest, happens also to be the southern Arizona or something. The official convention for the year is there. I know they did the Colorado convention over Breckenridge one time, and I went over to that. That was an eye-opener. Also, the last time I saw Rip and Ellie Van Winkle before they passed away. Okay, thanks, Dave. I have the cabling all set up. That XP computer has been languishing in my house for some time. Okay, Into Stooges. CWTY is pretty good Windows freeware app for Morse decoding. It works well with the 7300. I'm going to write that down. CWTY. I'll take a look at that. Thank you. Dog fence wire is good for radials. Yeah, you know, you could use number 16 wire for radials. The amount of current that's in the vertical gets split among all the radials, and then it comes back up. Okay, so an individual radial, assuming you've got 20 or 30 of them, is carrying very little current. Okay, what does it mean when they say that an antenna tuner is narrower or broad-banded? I'm not sure I've heard that terminology used specifically for antenna tuners. Antennas can be narrow or broad-banded. The antenna tuner, if it's any good at all, and I've just recently reviewed the Mini 1300. Let me take a look at it. It's right here. This is recently tested. The Mini 1300, yes. See if I can get this thing out of here. This right here is the vector network analyzer. This is the output that they can put through a network and come in over here, or you can hook your antenna. But the thing that is different about this, that is very cool, is that it's point and shoot. See that? If you want to do SWR, you push the SWR button. And so for all I know, it's got a nano VNA in it that's been modified in some way, and with a bigger screen too. I did recently do a video on the nano VNA. I think I can sort of remember how to make that thing work. Let's see. Agree on XP, definitely downhill, getting worse. Better than Vista, but still bad, yeah. Joe T, I think I'm listening a couple minutes behind, catching up at 1.5 times, and I agree about Windows 10. Yeah, this machine that I'm on right now, I built myself. I didn't solder all the little parts. I just bought parts on, you know, there's the vendors online. And it won't run Windows 11. There's some missing little security piece in there. I don't know what to do. I got a real late model board and everything. My laptop that my assistant uses has upgraded to Windows 11. So interesting. Let's see, Deley Gustafson. Thanks, N2 Stooges, but I already have the hardware, so I'm going to try to get it functional. Sure. No disrespect, sir. Don't worry about it. And people are going to disagree with things I say. And I understand that. And if you want to comment on one of my videos, say you feel this way and so on, that's fine. If you want to... Now, the one condition is it's got to be without any heat in it. What I call... you know, where you don't attack anybody. It's one thing to disagree with somebody's ideas. It's another thing to cast aspersions on a person's character. And the first is fine. Disagree with me all you want. The second is not fine, because I want this channel to be a safe channel, that people can come here and comment and talk and feel that they're not going to get attacked. So that's very important to me. So I am, if you don't like the league, and a lot of people who don't, I understand that. when I first got into ham radio, lo, these 40 plus years ago, 48, there was a big, huge problem going on between the league and the hams. The league thought that if they restructured the ham bands, that generals would be incentivized to improve their technical skills to get the amateur extra. It was a huge mistake, because prior to that, if you got to general, you had all amateur privileges. There really were two licenses, novice and general. And people were generals their whole lives. And then there was available at the time the advanced class and the amateur extra, but they were mostly prestige licenses. So the ARRL persuaded the FCC to revamp the band plans, took away half of the frequencies from the generals. You had to become an amateur extra to get all the privileges. And you can see there are still, and I'm talking 48 years later, there are still people who are furious with the league for having done that. And they won't have anything to do with the league. Now, good grief, that was most of a lifetime ago. The league learned its lesson. It has never considered doing anything like that again. I mean, they learned their lesson, but they lost a lot of members. There's still a lot of hams who are older than me, who are proudly generals, and that's all they do. Mostly they're on 75 meters, but, and a lot use AM, but yeah, hams have a very long memories, and so yeah, that's what happened. When I got into ham radio, I was in the middle of that. The league was in the middle of that, and I just got, I had my novice, I upgraded to general, and then Randy and I, who were friends, WB6MMJ, he's still a ham, we were helping each other advance. And so we went down, not only did we take our general test together, we took our advanced tests together. And then there I sat for 21 years, because there were very small slices of the band that were reserved just for extras. Yeah, I didn't care. But then I was working with the youth in Boulder, and there was this one kid, a really smart kid, who was just creeping up on extra. And I wasn't going to let anybody beat me to extra. I didn't want any teenager beating me to extra. So I finally got my button gear and got my license. Okay. Anyway, Joe T. Well, this is kind of crazy. I have 5 crates of radio equipment. Haven't been touched in 30 years. My wife keeps asking me to fire up the old tubes. Well, do so, by all means, but don't apply any electricity to that until you've done some restoration work with those old tube radios. You apply electricity to them, you could smoke. Smoking a capacitor is not bad. You can replace capacitors. But smoking the power transformer is a real issue, because you either have to rewind that transformer yourself, and you really got to know what you're doing to do that, or there are lots of things you can do. There is a magazine that is designed for old tube radios like that, people who like them and maintain them and all that sort of thing, people who deal with tubes. That is Electric Radio. And the website is Echo Romeo Mike Alpha Golf.com. That's ermag.com. Echo Romeo Mike Alpha Golf.com. Contact them. Get yourself a subscription. That'll motivate you to get on the air. They publish 6 times a year, by the way. Let's see. Harry Rundle, Dave, depending on evening propagation on 20. I do work in the Kazakhstan. There is a Victor uniform station in India further south, found on FT8. Cool. I don't get that far south. Would raising or lowering the antenna help? Maybe, but normally, I mean, you're going over the pole, okay? So you're having to deal with auroral propagation and stuff like that. And we've been having some pretty active geomagnetics coming along. And it may be that the polar path just isn't there. Now, Kazakhstan for you is off to the side. It's not due north. Victor Uniform is due north for you. Or due south. You can always try long path. But the Kazakhstan's going to be off over this way, so you're not getting into North Pole propagation, which is a real bag of worms. So Kazakhstan's pretty good. I'm going to have to get myself on there too. Okay. Chris Robinson, even if you don't agree with ARRL, they collectively support and advocate on our behalf. That is true. Harry Rundle, antenna is 7 feet up now. Lots of ground radials. Okay, Harry, tell me, what antenna do you have? Do you have a one of those antennas that doesn't need radials, and you've gone ahead and put a radial field under it, which will help, by the way? Or if you have just a vertical that's up 7 feet and your radials are coming down off of it like this, they need to be attached at the base of the antenna and then brought down. And that will work very well too. Life and Death, ship whatever works this year, disable the rest, and when it all works right, we'll release the rest as NT 5.1, which was released as XP. But that's really Win 2000 with all the little things completed. Yeah, sounds like somebody who knows Microsoft. Joe T, too many people in this chat for my taste. I'd never be able to get any answers right. Well, Joe T, try asking a question. We'll see what we can do for you. Now, if you want to get a question to me, 1, don't call, please. You can mail if you want. P.O. Box 98, Ridgeway, Colorado. Sometimes in these letters that I get, these are the entries for this month. Sometimes with these, I open them all. Sometimes people will include a letter, may ask a question. I'll try to answer it. Send me an email to AskDave, all one word, AskDave at arrl.org, not .net, .org. Okay, that's an official ARRL email address, and they all come to the same place. So I'll see your question. Now, when I get your question, I may or may not be able to answer it quickly. I may use it to make a video. I may do a video in response. I may do an Ask Dave, one of these in response. In fact, this one here from Bob Harder, WB8ILI, I think it's the one who sent me the graphic. Oh, no. I did that graphic to illustrate a point to him. So don't text, please. Send an email, because I check my email a couple times a day. Okay. And if there is a call, most of the time it says potential spam, so I'm not going to answer anyway. Yeah, email. Let's just do it over email. with email, you're welcome to send attachments, send a photo, send a layout of your station, whatever you want. I should do something where in this block of time, we look at people's stations. If you want to send me a photograph of your station, preferably with you in it, I'd be happy to show it here. I think that'd be a lot of fun. It's 8 o'clock, so we've only got 15 minutes to go. This represents what I received. Now, I received a letter wanting to enter the March giveaway, and it was postmarked in April. So I just stuck it with the Aprils. I've got a few early Aprils over here. Is this one April? No, this is not. Yeah, it says April giveaway right on the bottom of it. Okay, so here we are. I have been going through these things and, you know, getting them all mixed up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my finger in the middle. Okay, and I'm going to take whatever is under the top there. This is from Furick, from Syracuse, New York, and he sends a fairly long letter about an antenna. Okay, the original Wyndham. Interesting. Okay, I'm not sure he officially entered, although he did change that to March up at the top. So we're going to say he officially entered. He is in Star Lake, New York, and his name is Dennis N2NCL. So he is getting power supply. So I'll set this aside and we'll try and get that in the mail very soon. Now we've got second prize. That's this little $10 meter right here. They sent me 2 of them. So again, I'm going to put my finger in, and whatever is underneath my finger, this one KE0OG, Ben Pauley in Simpsonville, South Carolina. And he asked a question as well as, I have included my QSL card in case you're still doing the monthly drawings. Well, yes, I intend to do them for quite some time because this place needs clearing out. And I'm trying to look for things that, you know, have some value and interest. So KE0OG in Simpsonville, South Carolina, you will very soon be getting a little multimeter. All right, so there we have our drawing. Lefty loves ARRL's Magazine on the Air. Chris Robinson, good evening from the high desert of Lakeview, Oregon. Must be in the more easterly part of the state. KF6NFW. Leo says, in my humble opinion, Eastern Oregon isn't a desert. In the Marines, I had the fortune of being stationed at the Marine Corps base in Barstow in the Mojave. Now, that's a desert. Yes, it is. It is definitely a desert. I grew up not far from there. Harry Rundle puts $5 into the chat revenue. Says, thanks again for your wonderful Thursday night and your regular video. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I will try. Leo says, unless it's the Alvador. Now, that's a term I'm not familiar with. Arch Stanton, your clock shows 7:25, and my computer clock shows 9:36. Well, you're 2 hours different from me, so we're down to 11 minutes difference. This does delay. You know, I'll say something and it'll take a while. I'm looking over here on this side where I'm seeing what you're seeing, and then I look over here and see it in real time. Okay, Tim Backus, yeah, I'm pretty sure my clock is on because I've got the GPS clock, I've got the computer clock, and that clock is WWV. So, you know, and the thing is, the clock I love the best up there is a mechanical clock. It came from some surplus store or something like that. And I paid $70 for it, I think. And it's a Chinese clock, of all things, Chinese clock. And it's all mechanical. And I think it is from the day that back in communist China, before they had any real industry, people had mechanical clocks in their home because there was no way to have electric clocks. And of course, people have done that for a couple centuries. So anyway, it's a nice clock. I like it. I did take it apart once so I could clean it and re-lube it. Okay, let's see. John, K6RXD. Hi, Dave. If I make an HF contact across the Atlantic, could that be a ground wave? No. No chance. Or is too far for a ground wave contact? It might be ground wave if you tried like our new super low 2200 meter band, because that ground wave on that goes out for a long time, but I don't think it'll go across the Atlantic. You're going to be hitting the ionosphere, and it's probably going to hop more than once to get over there. I'm assuming, yeah, you said HF. Yes. Ground wave on HF, on 80 meters, it's significant. On 40 meters, it's a little bit. And the rest of HF, it really isn't worth bothering with. On 10 meters, it's about a mile. You've got ground waves, which hug the ground. Medium wave, your AM broadcast band. At night, you know how you can go so much further? Okay, so that's ground wave. Then there's the space wave, which is direct antenna to antenna. Now note that the radial radius of the Earth is 4/3 the real radius of the Earth. So you can be beyond, slightly beyond the horizon, but still within the radial horizon for VHF point to point, which is space wave. It just through space. Then there is the ionospheric propagation, where it goes up, hits the ionosphere, comes down, probably hops a time or two, and gets to wherever you're going. And if you've ever noticed you've been working a station and suddenly it starts getting fading and all of this stuff like that, that's because you're losing the ionosphere. You're losing the path. And it'll be fadey for a minute and then it's gone. Okay, and there are a lot of things that people have done with that. AT&T, when it did its long lines overseas, used radio, HF radio. They used like the big rhombics, big monstrous antennas for point-to-point communications. They were very effective. But what was more important is that they used spatial diversity. They'd put two receivers about 3 miles apart on different antennas. And then they'd bring the signals back together, and whichever one was strongest is the one they'd pick. And you could get an almost steady signal doing that. Now, there are other things that you can do. Since waves that come off the ionosphere are, I've often said, circularly polarized, elliptically polarized might be a better description. But if you have a vertical and a dipole, and they're going to your higher end receiver, you can do diversity with that because the polarization is changing like that. There are lots of things you can do to make it better. Most hams don't do diversity reception simply because of the logistics involved. Okay, so let's see. I used to live in Ridgecrest down there in Southern California, which is up in the mountains, very nice place. Mojave Desert, familiar with both. They're very similar and yet very different. Okay, and oh my, I am so far behind. I'm not going to get to all these comments. It's just about time to finish, and I apologize. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, $15. Thanks, Dave, for your knowledge and help for all of us. The Australian cobweb antenna is from 73 Antennas. Thank you very much. I did a nice review for him. This is an antenna that you can put up with no tools, except guying it. You do have to guy a mast for that thing, and he includes the guy rope. Real nice nylon, black, anti-UV kind of stuff. I get my stakes from Home Depot, and I'm trying to remember, there's a special name. It's concrete form stakes. You use these to hold concrete forms in place until they finish the concrete and take the forms off and take the stakes out. The stakes, you can get 2 feet, 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet. For my big antenna out here, the cobweb, the spider beam, it's called a cobweb, I guess, by MFJ. For that, I actually used 3-foot stakes. They're metal. Pounded them into the ground to where there's like 8 inches showing. And then that's my ground point. And that has stayed up forever. The problem with the 73 antennas, one was I was only using 2-foot stakes. And the wind pulled hard enough that it actually pulled the stake just right out of the ground, right out of the very wet ground. So that was the problem. The difference between astronomical time and sidereal time can be 4 minutes per year. It's actually 4 minutes per day. The Earth, we talk about one rotation of the Earth being a day. That's not quite true. It's the interval from noon to noon. Yes, I know you'd say, why not midnight to midnight? But technically, it's noon to noon. Noon is when the sun is the highest above the horizon. Now, as it turns out, that means the Earth needs to do one complete rotation, but then it's looking away from the sun, so it has to rotate for 4 more minutes, about, till you're looking back at the sun. So when we talk about a day being from noon to noon, that is the Earth having gone all the way around and then repositioned itself, so it's moving more than 360 degrees to look at the sun again. Now, the sidereal day is the amount of time for the Earth to actually do 360 degrees. Now, why is that important? That's important for astronomers, because if you do the sidereal day, you'll come back to the position where the stars are in the same place. Okay, so if you're going to come back and look at a star, you're going to use sidereal time, so you can look at that star again. Because otherwise it appears that the stars are moving in the sky, and they do with the seasons if you're noon to noon for a day. That's why the stars move, because we end up on the other side of the sun, and the seasons change and all. Anyway, yeah. There is no master clock, but Dave is a master ham. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Dwayne, Dave usually gets all the questions answered. I do try, but I'm not going to be able to do it tonight because there's just gobs of comments here, and we are out of time. By the way, on Wednesdays, I do a video called a commentariat. It is a video where I go through recent comments on the channel and address them. Sometimes they're very simple. Sometimes I end up deleting them. Sometimes I might reply, so on. And the comments are always interesting. So I try to take 20 minutes. Some people have suggested 30. And I make that video on Wednesday. And it's about the comments. When I start the video, I'm starting with the most current comments that I have for the whole channel. And I go through that. That's on Thursday. And then on Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday, we put up new videos. So, and then I do the live stream on Thursdays. So there's a video every day except Sunday. Okay. And I've got so doggone many things to review around here. You may have noticed a lot of the newer videos are reviews of all the things that I've got. Like I just did the Mini 1300 and did a comparison between this and the MFJ. And they agreed. They agreed very closely. Okay. What my computer probably needs is a trusted platform module. Yes. Easy to find which one through the web search of your particular motherboard. Windows won't install without that. Easy install. TPM, Trusted Platform Module. I'll look that up. If it's something that I can buy and plug in somewhere on the motherboard, that would be wonderful. This computer is, it's basically a gaming computer. But that's the same kind of hardware you need for a high-speed video processor. This thing processes video, meaning renders it at much greater than real time. You know, so if it's a 30-minute video, it'll render in about 10 minutes. So it's really cool. And that's why I made this computer. Of course, my assistant's always wanting it, but, you know, there we go. Okay, very much. I'm going to say 73 to everybody and hope that I will see you. I hope that you, if you are watching this and are not subscribed, please subscribe, because that tells YouTube, hey, I'm going to put my vote of confidence in this channel. If in addition you want to get notified when new videos come out, which is 6 days a week or so, then, you know, click the bell. And then you'll get a notification however you choose to get notifications. So, until we next meet, 73.